This is Greg Kelly. Donate now to Toys for Tots, which works year-round. Go to toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots supports children in need throughout the year with programs like the Toys for Tots Literacy Program. Established in 2008, it has provided over 63 million books to disadvantaged children. The Toys for Tots Literacy Program is committed to providing disadvantaged children with direct access to books and educational resources that enhance their ability to read and communicate effectively. Go to toysfortots.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Breaking news.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, President Trump doing a press conference just a little bit ago while he was in Florida. He's back in Washington now. And while he was in Florida meeting with Republican officials, sort of the Republican retreat, if you will, and he said that the Iranian operation is, quote, a short-term excursion, signaling it's not going to be a long, long endeavor for the United States, and also says that so far it's been an enormous success. Listen to President Trump citing some of the statistics.
They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar. They have no telecommunications. And they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further. And we're going to go further. But the big risk on that war has been over for 3 days. We wiped them out in the first 2 days. When you think about it, it's incredible. We wiped out a big Navy, very powerful Navy. These were ships. These were serious ships. These were ships that you buy when you want to win battles. They're all on the bottom floor. The sailors are all running off their ships. They refuse to get on the ships. The Air Force is gone. Everything's gone. The missiles are down to a trickle. The drones are down to probably 25%, and they'll soon be down to nothing. We'll have where they manufactured the drones are under fire as we speak. They're being hit. So the rest is going to be determination as to my attitude, along with the people in the Trump administration, what we want to do.
And President Trump says it has been his priority since day one to get rid of the threat from Iran.
On the very first day I came down the escalator in 2015, I said, quote, I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. And all I'm doing is keeping my promise. Think of that. That was in 2015. I said it. It was a threat then and a much bigger threat now, but no longer a threat. Not for a long time, anyway. We want to keep it that way.
And earlier today, Ambassador Mike Waltz, he is Trump's ambassador to the UN, said, thank God to the world that President Trump had the courage to go after the world's leading sponsor of state terrorism.
The military, our great Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, Secretary Rubio, and others are laying out the case in terms of how we are going to protect the American people and eliminate this threat once and for all. Kirsten, I can tell you as a veteran, I can't. It breaks my heart in so many ways that we have had to deal with this threat across the Middle East for 47 years. And I want to be clear, the Iranian regime started this war in 1979 under Jimmy Carter, and thank God for President Trump. He's taking the bold, decisive action that so many of his predecessors have failed to do to end it and to end this threat to the American people and our allies once and for all.
And thank goodness he had the courage to do so. We're talking about that. We're talking about Zoran Mandani and a whole bunch more. Zoran Mandani's very tepid response. By the way, I always love reading your comments, guys, from Twitter. And Zoran Mandani's very abysmal, dismal, pathetic, horrible attempt. And he went after, quote, the white supremacists, he said, as opposed to the Muslim terrorists who threw bombs right near Gracie Mansion where he lives. I mean, it really is shocking. He finally, at one point later today, did put out a statement saying that he condemns violence and terrorism. How brave of him. Days later, and still not calling it ISIS-inspired. I'm not sure why he has a problem with criticizing ISIS. I don't think anybody should have a problem with criticizing ISIS. But Sal, you said on Twitter, and I love this, you put at Rita Cosby, my handle there on X Twitter, Rita, maybe Mandani believes that it's the protesters' fault, that those two guys felt that they had no choice but to throw those bombs. What a crazy comment, but you might be on the money there, Sal. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Norm back there in Brooklyn. Sorry, go ahead, Norm. We had a hard break. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have been through many protests in the past, at Gracie Mansion area. Okay. I am absolutely the, Qayyumi and Balad are enemy combatants, and they should go away to prison for life. I have no dispute with that. What I am concerned with, though, is I've never heard of this Jake Lang, okay? And look, it's his First Amendment right to go and protest. But when it bothers me that I don't think he's a New Yorker. It bothers me that these people are coming to my city, these carpetbaggers, in my opinion, okay, having protests, okay, which are basically poking the bear. Okay, and it's not, it was advertised as a, anti-Islam rally. Well, what do you think you're going to get? You're going to get, I'm not saying that it's 100% that you're going to get people who are going to do acts of terrorism, but in the atmosphere that we're in, it's just unnecessary.
Well, and Norm, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Norm, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I mean, if you're going out there and saying, we want to rid the world of Islam or whatever, I'm not sure. I have to look at this guy's beliefs because I'd never heard of him before either. It's obviously very provocative. There's no question. But And I have no problem with people saying, look, I find some of the statements by this guy reprehensible, but then addressing obviously the two guys who threw a bomb, the fact that he didn't even bring up the two guys who threw a bomb, who clearly were ISIS inspired. I mean, it couldn't have been more clear. They're apparently seen on body cam footage bragging about their connections to ISIS, how ISIS inspired them to do this, looking online about ISIS, having communications about ISIS. I mean, so I guess if you look at all these things, if it smells like a duck and walks like a duck, it is a duck. It is an ISIS-inspired terrorist. And guess what? It wasn't a trick question for the FBI. It wasn't a trick question for the U.S. Attorney. And it wasn't a trick question for the NYPD commissioner, who also didn't think it was a trick question when she talked about a snowball attack as opposed to a snowball fight. Remember with the NYPD officers? She was really clear on that too. So she clearly has a lot more clarity than Zoran Mandani. And then what does he do? He goes and has dinner last night with Makmoud Khalil, saying he's a wonderful New Yorker. Give me a break. Norm, go ahead.
No, it's all you say is true, and I absolutely agree with you on that. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful in this, when we're protesting, that we're not poking the bear, because the bear can hurt a lot of people.
I agree. It provokes. Yeah. It provokes people. The problem is a lot of these guys don't seem to need provoking. They hate America. Right. They hate capitalism. Look at the hijackers who flew the planes in on 9/11. They just
absolutely true.
They hated who we represented, and New York is always a major target, as is a lot of big locations around the United States. But New York is always the number one target. So I don't think these people need any poking. They're already riled up because they hate us. Just like the Iranians. But I agree. Believe me. And you heard what I said. I don't know a lot about this Jake Lang at all. Again, it's the first time I've heard his name. And I don't necessarily like what he was doing there either. But again, by no means does it justify throwing a bomb into the location. And it's pretty clear that the bombers had ISIS ties. And for some reason, the mayor of New York is tongue-tied. And that, to me, Norm, is a huge problem because we've seen him tongue-tied quite a bit lately. And to me, it's incredibly shocking that the mayor of the city with the biggest Jewish population in America somehow has a problem condemning Muslim terrorists. That's the bottom line. It's pretty obvious who these people were. And for some reason, our mayor is in complete denial or sympathetic to certain individuals or certain cultures or whatever it is. The fact that he's sympathetic to Makmoud Khalil, I'm not going to call him a terrorist. But what I will say about Makmoud Khalil is that his group spewed a lot of pro-Hamas propaganda and other stuff. And that, to me, says a lot about him. And you judge a lot by your company. And for some reason, Mandani likes hanging around these characters, and that is concerning big time. Let's go to Joaquin in Pennsylvania, line 3. Joaquin, your thoughts?
Rita, I'm getting kind of fired up again here. As a matter of fact, you know, I want to throw the disclaimer in so that anything I say cannot be held against you.
Okay, go ahead. Let her rip, Joaquin. Go ahead, baby.
All right. In the first place, actually, I got to hand it to you. You were right when you started off by saying that the mother, you know, after 2 hours of her missing 18 and 19-year-old son, she called the police. She's just covering her derriere.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I mean, I don't know what she knew, or if she walked in the room and suddenly went, oh, or was she well aware, or does the apple not fall far from the tree? Let's just put it that way. You know, I mean, right. I'd like to know what kind of household. And I'd love to know the parents' proclivities in both of these homes.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I mean, these two guys are 18, 19 years old. They're military age. I mean, at 17, I enlisted in the Marine Corps, though I wound up not going because I got hurt. But at 17, I enlisted. These 18, 19, that's military age young men. Yeah,
they're old enough to throw bombs that are weapons of mass destruction. Let's throw it that way, right? I mean, I agree with you. I don't feel sorry for them at all. And that how about that attorney? I mean, that's what's shocking. That attorney for the guy made it sound like Mr. Rogers just popped in. I want to play that again, Joaquin, for everybody, because I think it's important. This is cut 19. This is the attorney for the 18-year-old Amir Balat. Listen to this one. We'll play a little bit of it here, Joaquin.
18 years old. He's been 18 for 2 months. He's a high school student. This is the first time he's ever been connected to anything like this. He has no history of any kind of violence. He's a U.S. citizen. And as far as I understand, this is the first time this has ever been indicated in any of his history. Anytime you have a young person who has no prior history, no connection to anything like this, no history of violence, no history of these kind of things, there's something going on that we're not identifying. And nobody in the media has said a single word about what could possibly lead to an 18-year-old U.S. citizen, high school student, to be in this situation with no prior connection to anything like this.
No prior connection. And my favorite line of the whole comments that he made, Joaquin, that he said a little bit later was, these two guys don't know each other. There's no evidence of them knowing each other, I guess, according to the family or whatever. So what, you just hop in a vehicle and you both happen to throw bombs together? Well, exactly. boy, is that luck in hitchhiking, right? I mean, give me a break.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is, And the thing of it is, I got to ask you a question now, though. Who is conquering Europe? Is it radical Islam, or is it, just peaceful Islam?
Well, obviously, it's radical Islam, and okay. You know who stopped it years ago was a Polish king, Jan Sobieski.
Yes, but who's conquering? But Europe is being conquered right now. England, France, most of Europe is being conquered, and who's doing the conquering? See, this is where I want to go. I told you last week that I want to make the distinction between the three religions. And again, I want to clarify, I'm just an average everyday guy, okay? So if anybody wants to back me up on this or dispute it, but, in the Jewish faith, God promised them the land of Canaan, which is the land of Israel, okay? He did not command them to go out and to conquer the rest of the world, okay? When you come to Christianity, Christ's kingdom is of the heavenly kingdom. In other words, it's supposed to go out and convert people to the Christian faith And you're not supposed to be, and nowhere in the Bible does it call for actually taking over a country or anything here on earth. As a matter of fact, he says his kingdom is not of this world. Okay.
So what's your point, Joaquin, just to get to the point?
Okay. And the point now, when it comes to Islam, though, it says to make the whole world submit to Islamic rule and to the rule of Allah. And yes, you might say that people can practice their faith, but the only way that they can practice their faith is if they submit to the Islamic rule and agree that there is no other God than Allah. Okay, so, and it lays out, it's a whole strategy basically for conquest of the world is what it is. And so unfortunately, if we don't wake up and smell the coffee on this, we're being conquered. And if you will go online,
but now,
media,
Joaquin, hang on 1 second. Don't you believe that many people in America see that because they don't want to become like what you look at what London is and Germany is and France with some of their no-go zones? Don't you think that America is understanding the fanaticism of this?
I don't think so. You see, the problem is that everybody wants to say that it's just another religion and we have religious freedom. But the problem is that, the more that you look at this whole thing, it's really not just a matter of religion anymore.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. On the other hand, there are a lot of individuals that will say privately, some publicly, that they are condemning certainly a lot of these acts. I mean, if you asked, I think anybody, and I have Muslim friends, they are shocked by what these guys did, this 18 and 19-year-old. But again, for some reason, it seems like a trick question for Zoran Mandani. Joaquin, we're going to have to do part 2 another day, but I want to make sure you got some of that in because I always appreciate you. 1-800-848-9222. We'll continue, everybody, with more after the break.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
At Manhattan University, a graduate degree is not out of reach. You'll gain real-world skills, credentials employers value, and connections to New York City's top companies. Choose from their new Master of Science degrees in healthcare informatics, digital marketing and analytics, business analytics, or financial analytics, all built around hands-on learning and industry partnerships. Graduate ready to lead, not just work. Take the next step at manhattan.edu/graduate. Manhattan University. Lead the future.
This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And Houston, we have a problem. Zoran Mandani hosts the pro-Hamas activist Makmoud Khalil and his family at Gracie Mansion for Ramadan and did it last night after the 2 Muslim terrorists threw the bombs at the crowd. So I'm being kind by saying it's tone deaf, but is there something behind this? He's posting a picture saying Makmoud Khalil, the guy who led all those horrible protests on college campuses, those vile things where they were celebrating October 7th. And then in his tweet, he talks about the Palestinian genocide, the genocide against Palestine.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Rita Cosby is on.
Well, the Democrats still refuse to fund the Department of Homeland Security. We're in that partial government shutdown, and President Trump is saying, you better hurry up and get it funded, especially with all of these threats to our homeland right now and potential sleeper cells. And of course, there was this terrorist attack over the weekend in New York City, sadly. Thank goodness it was thwarted. By the way, there were 2 NYPD officers who literally ran towards the lit device and helped to put it out. Then they had the bomb squad, of course, came out. But talk about the heroism. You've got something that could be a bomb, and it was a bomb about to go off. And you better appreciate our men and women in blue that were running towards the bomb to protect others. And meantime, Makmoud Khalil is hanging out with Mayor Zoran Mandani. Mayor Zoran Mandani puts out a statement condemning the vile protest and seems to leave out the terrorists, the Islamic terrorists who threw these bombs. One of them that could have caused mass destruction. And the goal was, they said, they wanted the attack to be deadlier than the Boston Marathon bombing, which killed 3 people and injured so many others. That was the goal of these terrorists. They said it on body cam. They said it all over the place. They weren't hiding who they were. For some reason, Zoran Mandani seems to be hiding who they are. So why is that? Well, Makmoud Khalil is who Zoran Mandani was hanging around with last night. I mean, the company this guy keeps is very questionable, to say the least. And Zoran Mandani hanging out with them after all the stuff that goes through this weekend. This is the guy who was running those pro-Hamas protests all over college campuses. And boy, was he a part of these groups that said a lot of vile things and were handing out all those vile folders and flyers during the protests on college campuses, especially on Columbia University campus, where Jewish students felt downright terrorized. And let's go back a little bit down memory lane. This is Makmoud Khalil, and he was asked on CNN, will you condemn Hamas? And for some reason, he dodged and weaved on that one, too.
Just to be clear here, though, do you specifically condemn Hamas, a designated terrorist organization in the United States, not just for their actions on October 7th?
I condemn the killing of all civilians, full stop. But what I don't want to get into is no, I am very clear with condemning all civilians. I'm very straight in my position in that part. But it's disingenuous to ask about condemning Hamas while Palestinians are the ones being starved now by Israel. It's not condemning October 6th, where 260 Palestinians were killed by Israel on before October 7. So I hate this selective outrage of condemnation, because this is not. This wouldn't lead to a constructive conversation. And this is also like what we want to deal with is the root causes of why that happened. And it's in no way anyone can justify
just to be clear,
the killing of civilians.
Mahmoud,
yeah.
We did ask about, we talked at length about your views, of course, on the Palestinians, but it is fair to ask you about whether you condemn Hamas, because the Trump administration has claimed that you are a Hamas sympathizer. So it's very important to actually ask that question in this broad conversation.
Yeah, I simply asked and protested the war in Palestine.
Wait a minute. That wasn't a trick question. That was a very interesting sequence, because it was like, it's not really fair to be mean to these people called Hamas. He seemed to be justifying what they did. Then he brought up, deaths of Palestinians prior to October 7th. And he seemed to be making excuses for October 7th. This is Makmoud Khalil. This is the guy who was leading all these protests. He's telling us who he is. We saw him in action, and he's not denying it. And then here is Zoran Mandani, 3 months before the October 7th massacre, echoing, globalize the intifada. Let's throw this one out. Here it is.
So who is ready to end the exception? I want to hear you say, not on our dime! Not on our dime! Not on our dime!
It's incredible. That guy got elected mayor of New York City with the biggest Jewish population. And then let's not forget Zoran Mandani's father. Here he is.
America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. You can differentiate between people. The Nuremberg laws were patterned after American laws. Anyway, the U.S. put Indians in reservations. The U.S. invented the model.
So he's equating what? Hitler learned genocide from Abraham Lincoln, like America created genocide, and then Hitler was just copying it because America is bad. And then, of course, let's not forget, Zoran Mandani's hanging around with this YouTuber, the streamer, Hassan Piker, who said this about 9/11.
America deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it. Like, we totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy we did. We did.
And after that got called out, Hassan Piker did retract it, saying he shouldn't have said it. Absolutely shouldn't have said it. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Judith in Brooklyn, line 3. Judith, your thoughts tonight. This is another stunning night.
Rita, you said a whole bunch of stuff. You didn't leave anything to me, but I just want to say, this guy, Jake, I think Lang, whatever, I'm not familiar too much, but I think the point was he's protesting because this is a Judeo-Christian country. This is Judeo-Christian values, and I think his point was in a peaceful protest over there to say that he's anti-radical Islamist because guess what? This guy, Mandani, no surprise, he is a terrorist sympathizer for Hamas. Everything points to it with that stupid wife of his, okay? And let me tell you something. As far as Mandani goes, talking about his father, has he condemned his father? That he goes for suicide bombing, like that's perfectly fine. Does he condemn CARE, who rejoiced October 7? I mean, he doesn't because he's part of it. The fact that he brought Makmoud Khalil over here, who was the biggest liar in town, nothing happened on October 6th, for crying out loud, okay? These two guys have been Students for Justice for Palestine heads, both of them, okay? Which basically they're trained activists to simply sit there and pass propaganda lies against Israel. The fact that DSA, that they are part of, that has partnered with Antifa.
Right, the Democrat Socialists of America.
Exactly. They say in order to become a member with Mandani at the head, you have to say we don't recognize Israel to have the right to exist. And that's what it's all about. They're a bunch of liars.
Well,
okay?
and you know what? You know it's amazing, Judith, that I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I always say, okay, well, I mean, to me, and you heard what I said, this is not a trick question. You got these two guys, and clearly the Jake, whatever his name is, Jake Lang, whoever, the guy who was leading the protest, knew it was going to be provocative because he announced it that he was going to be there, and he knew it was going to be provocative. Again, it doesn't justify any of these horrific actions by these individuals. But he knew that he was being a provocateur, that it would, inspire people to come out or whatever it was. But for some reason, the mayor in his statement was just talking about, quote, the vile protest. And he seemed to leave out the two Muslim terrorists who threw these bombs and who were clearly ISIS inspired. And that's troubling, Judith. I mean, it can, you keep wondering, and you're right. He said a lot of these things prior to, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I just keep thinking, okay, now he's the mayor and he's got to realize just how dangerous his comments are. And then you've got, Jessica Tisch, who clearly is very clear how she feels. And she has come out and been very direct about who's responsible and why. And I found it interesting today, Judith. I don't know if you did. I'm just going to throw it out there. At the press conference today, It was Jessica Tisch, the NYPD commissioner. It was the assistant director there at the FBI in New York. And it was the U.S. attorney in New York, Jay Clayton. It was the three of them. Where was Mandani? Maybe it was intentionally wasn't there. What do you think?
You know, I'll tell you something. What I think, there's so much, it's like I'm dizzy. But you know what I think? I'm going to tell you something. It's Mandani. He thinks he's the caliph of Muslim mayors. He thinks he's the caliph. And you should know he's symbolic, because he now became the first Muslim mayor of New York City. This is like, whoa, okay? Like conquering the world. So all the Muslims now are all brazen. All the imams are saying God knows what. They're just coming out. And it's a very, Joaquin says it exactly right. England, France, other places, they are taken over, okay? Once upon a time, immigration here used to be with quotas, with balance, okay, where you have from all different countries. All of a sudden, with this Biden administration and Obama and whatever, all of a sudden you had these flooding of God knows how many people coming in, and you take a look at this country and you don't recognize it anymore. It's like taken over. And you know what? And therefore, we really have to stand our ground. This was a peaceful protest. I've been to a few protests. So they keep one group on the other side and the other thing. I don't know, but you know something? I think Mandani was actually happy that these two came up and they were throwing it, because this is his way of discouraging and saying, don't you even dare try to come and say anything against anyone Muslims. Meanwhile, I have yet to hear any Muslims being attacked by anybody over here. No one even does that. If anything, they're attacking Jewish people. They're attacking people in synagogues. They have the nerve to go right up to the door and not let them in the synagogue. And then you got Mandani saying, well, it's their fault because they're recruiting people to go to Israel, something, which is absolute BS.
You know, it's interesting, Judith, you hit an interesting point there that, and I noticed that he seemed to be so furious at what he called the white supremacist protests. Again, at that point, no mention of these, guys throwing the bombs. He since has said we won't tolerate terrorism or violence in our city, but he's still kind of refusing to say it's ISIS inspired. So he's still, even days later, still having trouble with that. But he had such a disdain for the white supremacists, as he calls them, protesters. And remember, during all these other cases, you didn't hear him saying that about the people that were blocking the church, the synagogue. Like, as you brought up, the Park Avenue Synagogue. I remember when that happened in New York City, that very historic, renowned, led by a Holocaust survivor. He didn't have that much disdain for those protesters. And in fact, just like you said, he blamed the participants for saying, well, why are you going to church at that time? And I mean, it's just crazy. It is really crazy. It's like I keep just shaking my head saying, no, he didn't really say that. And no, he didn't really have dinner last night with Makmoud Khalil. But he doesn't seem to care. He seems to want to stick it in everybody's face. And Makmoud Khalil is not a hero in my mind. And clearly in Zoran Mandani's he is, because he's had him with him every step of the way. Remember, he had him there on election night. And then he had him last night even after all this stuff happened. He should have said, Makmoud, not a good time to see you. And maybe I shouldn't see you anymore until you denounce Hamas. But so far, that hasn't happened. Judah, thank you very much. Some really powerful points by you. Thank you very much. We're going to continue, everybody, after the break. But first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from East Lansing, Michigan, where Senior Day for Jackson Kohler will be a lifetime memory for his family, as his 102-year-old great-grandfather, veteran of World War II, Earl J. Chuck Kohler, was honored just prior to the start of a Michigan State football game. The veteran, who was escorted mid-court by Jackson's father and grandfather, is one of 12 remaining survivors of the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, that sparked American involvement in World War II. Just to give you a little bit of background about this great veteran of the greatest generation, he joined the Navy at the age of 17, and he served as a petty officer, first class, and aviation metalsmith. He was then stationed in the center of Pearl Harbor at the time of the attack. And despite orders to take cover, Kohler set up a .50 caliber machine gun and fired at the attacking aircraft. What a great hero, and how amazing he lived to describe it all for future generations. And what a beautiful tribute to him and his family recently at the Michigan State basketball game. And everybody, help America to never, ever forget our great heroes and their families. All you have to do to make an incredible difference, and it's very easy, donate $11 a month to the incredible Tunnel to Towers Foundation. They do so much good, and it is helmed by, of course, Frank Siller, who lost his brother Stephen Siller on 9/11, running through the tunnel with a big bag on his back, running toward the danger, running toward the Twin Towers, a true hero. Help honor Stephen Siller and all of America's great heroes, and also especially veterans and their families. Be sure to check them out at t2t.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And we are told tonight, by the way, that the FBI has been searching a Pennsylvania storage facility in connection with their investigation into the ISIS-inspired bombing attempt outside of Gracie Mansion. Apparently, this storage locker is in Langhorne, which is the same location where Aaron Balad, who's the 18-year-old, lived with his parents. Speaking of which, and you guys know I always like to read my Twitter during the show too as well, at Rita Cosby. Guys, make sure you follow me there. Well, Marianne writes, and it's an interesting point. She says, I just saw on the news that the house that these two bombers live in is a beautiful multi-million-dollar home. And you're right, the house that they showed up with in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, at least one of the houses that I saw, you're right, Marianne, looked like this beautiful, very nice home from a nice neighborhood, like a nice community. So it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the show, guys. Do you think the parents knew about it, or maybe other siblings or friends or whatever? The attorney saying, oh, there was no criminal history, which is actually really troubling. Because, and that's probably correct, because we heard from Jessica Tisch that she didn't see any criminal history in the background of these two guys. But it makes you wonder how many more people are like that out there that are ready to snap and suddenly meet online, maybe, or I'm not sure where they met. We don't know yet. But how did they meet? How did they get hooked up with ISIS? How did they get inspired by them? And how many more are out there in our country? That's what should keep everybody, and especially law enforcement, up at night. Let's go really quick to Tony in Clifton, New Jersey on line 5. Go ahead, Tony.
Hi, Rita. Great show. So a couple of quick points. We know that Mayor Mandani admitted that he was away. He was not there. He was at the Brooklyn Museum. This is one of the most, the beginnings of these sort of, protests, anti-Islam protest is something key. And his assistant, the assistant terrorist person, said they knew about it a week before. What this shows is that they really didn't care much about it.
That's a very good point. They knew about it. It sounds like they had some police there, but they certainly could have had more security. You're right about it. And second of all, you still don't want anybody throwing bombs.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
At Manhattan University, a graduate degree is not out of reach. You'll gain real-world skills, credentials employers value, and connections to New York City's top companies. Choose from their new Master of Science degrees in healthcare informatics, digital marketing and analytics, business analytics, or financial analytics, all built around hands-on learning and industry partnerships. Graduate ready to lead, not just work. Take the next step at manhattan.edu/graduate. Manhattan University. Lead the future.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.